Hey guys, what's going on? Alright, so today we're going to go over some Gideon optics, the Mediator, and the Judge. So let's get into it. Alright, so disclaimers before we really get into this. Gideon did send me these optics, both of these, to use, make reviews, content, all that stuff on the channel. That being said, I always give you guys my honest opinion. If you think that this skews my opinion of these things since I got them for free, you believe what you want to believe. We all are entitled to our own opinions, and if that's your opinion, then yeah, that's great. But that's not my opinion. Whenever people give me optics and things, my opinion is that alleviates me from any need to justify the purchase, right? So I can say whatever I want to say about these things, good or bad. Maybe they'll never send me another optic if these things don't live up to a higher standard, or maybe they end up working great. I don't know. Time will tell. I honestly don't know yet, right? So today we're going to go over, this is basically kind of like a part one. We're going to go over some specs, some information as far as that goes, kind of put these guys, you know, Barbie fit them onto stuff and kind of see how they look, right? Part two, we will go ahead and actually shoot these guys and conduct some tests and run them and see how they really work. On that note of part two, I just want to take a second to say this, right? It kind of drives me nuts whenever content creators, reviewers, whatever, will kind of do this, but I understand now why they do it. I need you guys to weigh in on what you want these things to do, right? Because if I just do a standardized test, which maybe that's just what I should do, and put these guys through a set round count, which I'm not that big of a channel, you guys know that, so I can't do, you know, 5,000 rounds. I just can't do that for every single optic. There's no way I can do that. And I don't want to just bring these guys out and smash them on an anvil, because that's not a torture test. Nobody does that. No optic is going to withstand that, right? Unless it's made out of, like, you know, stardust or something, and we don't have those commonly available. So you see what I'm saying? I want your guys' opinion on budget optics. What do you want these things to do? What should they be able to handle? Should they be able to just be zeroed, shoot 100 rounds, kicked around in the dirt just in case you dropped your gun, maybe rack it off some stuff? Is that sufficient for a review? Do you think that that's sufficient? Or do you want these things to really be run through the mud, right? To really be like beat up and see how far they can go before they die? What do you guys value? That's what I need you guys to weigh in on. And if you don't weigh in on that, then I'm probably just going to keep testing these the way I always test them, and we'll see what happens, and hopefully it answers you guys' questions. But don't complain that I'm not doing the test the way that you want to do it if you don't weigh in. So weigh in before part two comes out, and I'm trying to see what you guys want, all right? So enough of that. Let's go ahead and start off with this guy right here. This is the Judge, all right? This is the RMSc Footprint, little bitty micro red dot from them. I'm going to go over some specs, read off some stuff to you, and then we'll kind of just take a little bit of a closer look at it. Specifications for the Judge. It has a 1x magnification, which basically means it's just a piece of glass. There's no real magnification involved here. The lens dimensions is 16 millimeters tall by 21 millimeters wide. You have, in total, 70 MOA adjustments, right? So minutes of angle adjustments, and each one of those minutes of angle is a 1 MOA click per value, right? So each adjustment that you make on the site itself is going to be a click, and that click equals 1 MOA of value. The reticle is a 3 MOA dot. Your parallax free beyond 33 yards. You have 10 brightness settings, and this unit runs off of one single 2032 3-volt battery. It has an auto awake and sleep mode, so after 225 seconds of non-activity, non-movement, the unit will shut itself off. You touch it, it'll turn itself back on. This is shockproof and waterproof. The weight with the battery installed is advertised at 0.6 ounces. A very lightweight unit, all right? That's just the unit, not including the mount. And this is something that is interesting. This unit does come with a 1913 Picatinny mount adapter, which is interesting. That is very interesting. I was pretty shocked whenever I saw that it actually came with that. I don't think that's standard. I have never received an RMSc Footprint optic, right, that came with a 1913 adapter. I've never seen that. I've gotten some RMR footprints, footprint optics that came with a Picatinny mount 1913 adapter, but never an RMSc. That's interesting. That mount is going to get used. I'm going to tell you that. I mean, no matter how long or whatever the optic itself runs, this mount's going to get utilized for something. So that's pretty interesting. Looking at this guy a little bit further, it just has some interesting cutouts and designs. I do like the fact that, you know, you have easy access to your adjustments on top and on the side. I've seen some optics where they have adjustments on the rear, which is kind of ignorant in my opinion, because then when you have a rear sight back here, you can't adjust your optics. That's kind of ignorant, but they don't do that. So adjustments on the top, adjustments on the side. Big, easy buttons. They're tactile. Audible, you can hear them, they click, they move, they do what they need to do. You do need a decent amount of force to push the button, so you shouldn't accidentally be activating it. One thing I will note, and I'll try to take a picture so you guys can see this. The glass itself, I'll say a con and then I'll tell you a pro, and we'll see if the pro is actually a pro. But the con is that if I can get this on camera right, the lens of the optic actually protrudes forward of the protective covering, okay? Now that could be a problem. If we go to rack that off, you know, the tail of my truck, or, you know, some barricade thing or whatever, or even just dropping it on the ground, the very front lid or lens, not lid, the lens of this optic is exposed, right? So I would have thought that they would push the hood a little bit more forward or recess the glass a little bit more, because the glass is not protected on the very front. That is the strike force, their strike face of this unit if you went to go rack it off something. So that's a major, like, ooh, I'm cringing even getting ready to, you know, mount this up to something and go shoot it, because whether or not it breaks, I don't know, but it's probably gonna get scratched. I'm thinking out loud, and that's a con that I'm seeing on this, right? A pro is that it is very clear glass. It has a very slight purple or blue hue to the glass. But it's very, I mean, it lets in a lot of light. A lot of times these optics have a red tint. Even some of the bigger names of optics out there, they have a red tint, which helps the battery life, extends the battery life, right? This guy just has a very slight purple or blue hue to it. And I'm not sure how that's going to extend the battery life. And speaking of battery life, I don't know. I don't know what the battery life is advertised as, because they do not give it, as far as I can read, on the box or on the instruction manual. They don't give it. So I don't know if this is a 20,000 hour, 50,000 hour, 200 hour battery life. I'm not sure. Time will tell. We will see. All right. That's some basic information about this guy. Let's set him aside. That's the judge. And let's move over to the Mediator. All right. So the Mediator itself, again, 1 times magnification, pretty much 0 magnification. So it's just a piece of glass. Lens dimensions is 19 millimeters tall, 16 millimeters wide. You have 90 total MOA adjustments. So that's a little bit more adjustment that you have available to you over the judge. Same as the judge, you have 1 MOA per click. And the reticle is actually a 3 MOA dot plus a 65 MOA circle. All right, so you have a dot circle reticle. We'll talk about that in just a second here. Again, parallax free beyond 33 yards, 10 power settings or level settings, brightness settings, however you want to say that. And it also runs off of 1 single 2032 battery. Same shake awake, 225 seconds of non-activity, non-movement. The unit will shut itself off. You touch it, it'll turn it back on. Shockproof and waterproof. And the weight with the battery installed, I'm not sure about the mount, I think it's just the unit and the battery, is 2.5 ounces approximately. That is the Mediator. And this does have, I do believe it does have, the Acro Footprint. And I do not have, right now, an Acro Footprint pistol, right? But this guy does come with a riser, so this is going to go on a rifle, right? Probably put it on one of my ARs and just see kind of how it rolls that way. It is interesting it comes with an Acro Footprint. And usually when these come with that, they come with an adapter plate to go to an RMR footprint. I don't have one of those, and so I don't think we're going to be able to run this guy on a pistol, but we're going to run it on a rifle, right? So this is kind of just a micro or a miniature, maybe a miniature. We'll call it a mini, because micro would be more like this guy, but a mini red dot for like your ARs or rifles, or even like a backup sight. You could use it as a backup sight. All right, this guy does have the buttons here over on the left-hand side, and these not only give your brightness settings, which is obvious, but if you hold down the minus button, you will you'll force turn off the unit, right? And you can shake it around and stuff. It's not going to turn back on. So if you're going to be traveling and you want to lock up, you got to lock up your guns, before you get on your flight and everything. If you're going to go to a class, you're going to go hunt, you're going to do something, or you're going to be traveling for a long distance, whatever it is, or for storage and you don't need the light to turn on, you know, if you have a little earthquake or something, which we have those up here, and you don't need the light to be turning on, or the dot to be turning on, you can power off the unit completely. To turn it back on, you just hit the plus button and the unit will turn it back on. Speaking of the plus button, if you hold the plus button down for 3 seconds, you will switch your reticles, right? So you hold it down for 3 seconds, you will get the circle with no dot. You hold it down for another 3 seconds, you will get the circle and a dot. You hold it down for another 3 seconds, you will get just the dot itself. I'm a big proponent, big fan of just the dot. It's a little bit more precise. I understand why some people like the circle dot. I mean, EOTech has been doing it for a long time, and it has its advantages. It definitely has its advantages. Everybody's got their own flavor of stuff that they like and reasons why they like it, but this gives you the option to pick between the different reticles, so that's pretty cool. All right, so with both of these optics, let's look at what comes with them. All right, we talked about the units themselves and the mounts that they come with, but you also, if I can get the box open, you also get some additional sets of screws and your instructions, right? So you get your little microfiber cloth. The judge actually comes with a little plate on the bottom, so if you're gonna mount this guy to a pistol, you generally would wanna use this little cover, gasket kind of thing to seal up the battery, because the battery is on the underside. We'll show that in just a second. It's not a side-loaded or top-loaded battery, so this is one of those units where you would have to take the unit off to change out your battery, all right? You also get a whole host of different screws for different mounts that you might possibly need, just depending on what system host you're going to be running this guy on. You also get your adjustments for your screwdriver for your windage and elevation adjustments, and I already took it out, your little Torx bar for mounting and unmounting the optic. Other than that, that's all you get. All right, moving over to the Mediator. I keep saying moderator. The Mediator, same exact thing. Oh, you also get a sticker, right? So you get a sticker with these things. Microfiber cloth, all your all your mounting hardware as far as your windage and elevation, that's a new word. Your windage and elevation screwdriver, your hex bit, and that's all you get. You don't get a bunch of different screws and stuff because this is not a standard mount. This is an Acro mount, and you don't need a bunch of screws for that. It's basically like a 1913 mount, but specific towards the Acro mount, if that makes sense. The Acro Footprint, right? So that's the stuff that you get with the Mediator. All right, let's put the Mediator aside real quick. Let's go ahead and mount up this little guy on a pistol. All right, so you take off the 2 screws, take them things out, make sure you don't strip them or anything. Set those guys aside, and like I said earlier, the battery is on the bottom here, and it is exposed, right? It does kind of have a gasket around the battery, kind of like a rubbery gasket, so you don't have to use their little sealing plate. I'm not sure exactly what nomenclature they use for it, what they actually call it, but it's just a sealing plate that seals everything up. You don't have to use that if you use their mount, because that works as the sealing plate, seals everything up. Depending on your host, though, in this case, we're going to be using, this is an Advantage Arms 22 conversion slide from a Glock 19. This has a mounting plate, which is basically a Glock MOS plate, and it has screws and things in there that hold it down. So if you were to just directly mount your optic to this guy, you're not waterproof anymore, right? Because you have areas and crevices that, you know, can leak into that battery compartment, and so you are going to need to use this little sealing plate. So we're gonna head bust this guy out and mount this optic up onto this pistol. All right, hopefully you can see here, you can see where the different screws are and things, that's where the battery would be on top of, and that's not going to be sealed properly unless you utilize this little mounting plate or this little sealing plate. That's gonna seal everything up. So we got that guy on here. We're gonna go ahead and put our optic on, and then use the provided screws to lock everything down. All right, I did not see on the instructions a torque spec, but I'm gonna go off the torque spec provided for the MOS mounting plate, which is about 13, I think it said 13.3 foot-pounds or inch-pounds, whatever it is. It's not a whole lot, but again, I have had so much trouble lately with these screws being tightened way too much and busting off, so I'm being a little bit light on my mounting and making sure you mount it properly. You don't just get in there and go ham-haw on it and just screw these things in until the tops bust off, because that'll happen. So anyway, that's what this guy looks like. It's interesting looking at this guy on a frame like this, because the optic itself, I think it's going to work fine, but it is smaller than traditionally what I would have this guy on. I'd usually have this guy on like a Glock 43X or 48, or something similar to that size, and the optic looks more not true to size, but it looks like it fits a little bit better. This actually looks like it's gonna work fine. And we'll see. This is a 22 slide, and we'll see how it handles the recoil and everything, and I should be able to use the same holsters and whatnot and do that manipulations like we talked about, and we'll see if the front of that glass actually takes impacts and ends up working or not working. So we're gonna see, but that's how this guy looks on, basically, this is what it would look like on a Glock MOS version of whatever, you know, a 19 MOS, but this, again, is the Advantage Arms slide with the Glock MOS mounting plates. So that's this guy. All right, so let's move over to the Mediator. Again, this is, since this has the Acro Footprint, and I do not have an Acro Footprint pistol slide, right, cut out for that, I'm gonna go ahead and mount this guy on an AR, and we'll see how it looks on there. All right, so let's talk about this mount real quick before we get this guy mounted up. You do have a couple different springs underneath your opposing slot right here that cinches down and tightens everything up. So that allows you to basically mount this guy a little bit easier, right? It keeps everything, well, if you've mounted these things before, you know exactly what I'm talking about. It just aids in mounting the optic, the fact that it's kind of spring-loaded. However, the crossbolt is not captured. So if you screw this guy all the way out, he's gonna come all the way out and the springs are gonna come out. So be careful. Don't just pull that screw all the way out and have your pieces go flying around. Unscrew it enough and those springs will open up that claw a little bit and allow you to mount the optic relatively easy. On the other side here, we'll talk about our battery. Our battery is captured inside this little round circle thingy, right? It's very technical terms for you. But our battery is in there. It's already installed. They use Energizer batteries, so as far as I can tell, that's fine with me. I've never had problems with Energizer batteries. But we got our battery in there, and you can tell it is gasket sealed. So that's, I believe, where they would get their waterproof, dustproof capabilities as far as their battery goes. So we'll see how that guy holds up. Over here on the other side, again, we'll go ahead and take this off to kind of show you. If you were to take this off, this is how your optic actually mounts to the riser. And again, same kind of thing where it's spring loaded. So we didn't have to take the screw all the way out, the bolt all the way out. It is spring loaded. And this, Acro Footprint looks very much like a miniaturized 1913 footprint, but it's not the same. If you went to go mount this guy, he's not going to mount up right? So he's not going to fit properly on a 1913 rail. Don't try to make it fit. That's just not worth it. Make sure you use your appropriate adapters. And thankfully it does come with your mount, right? So we're gonna go and screw this guy back on, mount him up. All right, and with those springs holding open the claw, it makes it very easy just to rock on your mountless, just like that. When you mount optics to Picatinny mounts, you see how there will be this little bit of play. That is completely normal. What you want to do is push that optic forward in that mount slot, all the way forward, kind of give some tension on it, hold it there while you tighten everything down. That is going to allow the optic to hold its zero a lot better, because under recoil and inertia, that optic is going to try to move forward. And if you already have it set all the way forward, then he's not gonna be able to move, right? And you want that, right? So get this guy nice and tight. Again, we'll use the recommended, I think it's like 13 point something foot-pounds, inch-pounds, whatever this fat wheeler thing is. I think it's foot-pounds. Anyway, yeah, it's not Gorilla Tight is what I am going to try to say, right? It's not Gorilla Tight. So, there you go. That's a traditional, I believe this is a regular co-witness height. They don't say exactly what the height is of this riser. It's not the taller ones. I'm a fan nowadays of putting your optics up taller. I've drank the Kool-Aid, and I'm a high riser kind of guy, right? But for this, it should be perfectly fine. So I'll put this on the lower, and we'll see how this guy actually looks. All right, so there we go. In essence, this is my knockoff of a Space Baby, basically. But in essence, that's your system right there. Again, I like to have the lower, get that guy out, or the taller sights, because I feel like this, you do get down a little bit more. But I understand why people want these things to be shorter. Everybody kind of went that way a while back ago, and people are still doing it, and that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But that's how this guy looks. We'll run it probably on this upper for a little bit. We'll throw it on another upper, under, a 5.56 upper. This is 9mm. We'll see how it handles the recoil, and then depending on what you guys really want to see, do you want to see the torture testing kind of stuff? If you do, then we'll have to drop it, right? We'll have to bang it around a little bit, see how long it actually lasts. It'd be very interesting to put this guy on a pistol, because you have that reciprocating mass. The slide's going to be going back and forth, and that jars loose a lot of stuff. I've broken a handful of optics that are extremely similar All right, you can read what I'm saying through the grains of salt right there. Extremely similar to how this guy looks, right? The construction of this guy. And I've busted some other branded optics, right, that look identical to this, all right? We'll say it that way. So it would be interesting to see how much this guy, if he's built any different on the inside, how much he would hold up to some riding on a pistol slide. But since we don't have an Acro Footprint, we can't really do that, so we're going to have to stick with rifles and, you know, PCCs and stuff like that. But basically, this is what we got right now. This is a quick little look, quick little first look, and some data drop specs and stuff for you guys. If you have any questions about either one of these sights, the little Judge and the Mediator, make sure I'm saying that right. I keep wanting to say moderator. It's a Mediator. If you've got any questions about either one of these sights, please do let me know. And I do again ask that you weigh in and tell me what you want to see these guys do. Do you want to see ease of zero, holding zero over, you know, a range session of aggressive use, right? Because I do not have the funds and the time and all this stuff to do 2,000 rounds. I just don't. I'm not that guy. If you know who that guy is, and I absolutely love his content, love his stuff. He can do that. I can't. Not right now, right? Unless we get a whole bunch more of you guys on here to, you know, to help out. But what do you guys want to see? Round count, durability, ease of zero, all that kind of stuff. I need to know that from you guys. And if I don't get that from you guys, I'm just going to make it up. And hopefully you guys enjoy it anyway. So anyway, that's enough of that stuff. I appreciate Gideon for sending these optics out. We will test them. We'll see how they work. We'll see over time just how they hold up. All right? That's it. You guys be good, be safe. I appreciate you guys watching, subscribing, and everything. And hopefully we'll catch you guys in the next video. See ya.